it's unclear that that was ever done, because if they're not, the roads are not up to town specs, I would suspect that they were never formally dedicated to the town. So the ones that are paved and are maintained by the town have really become user roads under, I think
Doing
it's
that. And it's unclear that that was ever done, because if they're not, the roads are not up to town specs, I would suspect that they were never formally dedicated to the town. So the ones that are paved and are maintained by the town have really become user roads.
Who is that? It sounds familiar.
And it's unclear.
I don't know what's going on, but it's repeating.
YouTube. Town specs. I would suspect that they were never formally dedicated to the town. So the ones that
Warren.
Does anybody have any idea what?
What has YouTube on? You got to turn the YouTube live on because there's like a delay.
Okay, here we go.
Turn it off.
Is that okay?
That's
All
better.
right. I can't stand listening to myself, so I
Yeah,
don't
sorry
want-
about that.
I don't want to listen to.
Warren,
So-
when you look at the tax map, does the tax map show these individuals' properties?
Yeah, the tax map, yeah, the parcel access shows the individual parcels, and the parcels do not go to the center line of the road. The parcels go to the edge of the road. And I would suspect that when it was developed, the intent was that those would be dedicated to the town, and they're probably 50 feet in width if you measure the subdivision. The only way to determine if that was ever done would be for me to commission a title search to see if there's any record of dedication, which I can do if you like. But my suspicion is that they've become town roads by usage. So the width of the roads, if they're town roads by usage, if they've never been formally dedicated to the town, is only the width of the paved section of the road plus the shoulders of the road. So our responsibility is only to the extent that they become user roads for clearing trees and brush. So anything within the paved section of the road and the shoulder section, that's our responsibility. If a tree falls in there or something's growing, the highway superintendent has to remove those. If there's a tree on a neighboring property and it's in danger of falling on the road and imperiling the traffic on the road, that's also our responsibility. But other than that, we don't have any responsibility to go on people's properties and remove trees, even though technically they could be within that 50-foot original right-of-way.
We're talking about a road though, Warren, that is not used. We're calling it a road improperly. There's no traffic that passes over
And
it.
there's no responsibility. All that is a paper road that's never been dedicated to the town, and it's never been maintained by the town as a town road. So it doesn't have any status other than a paper road. So technically, the title to that road is probably still in the original developer, who I'm sure doesn't exist anymore.
Warren, just a couple of points. I can only do limited searching on the computer up here. I can't get down to the county. But this predates our subdivision laws, predates the formation of this. And so
55, yeah.
yeah, I did go through the minutes in that general area, and there's no record on the town board minutes of any discussion at all of the subdivision, and no record or indication that there wasn't even an intent to dedicate. But then again, if you grant or grantee from here, or even if you look up corporations from here, you don't find anything that indicates that. So as I say, very limited.
Yeah, it's hard to read this, but I think I did find a filed map, and I have two.
Filed map.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
we
is a
found
file
that.
map, and it's filed in the Dutchess County Clerk's office.
Clerk's office, yes, but it
So-
predates.
Yeah,
it
and that
predates
preceded
subdivision.
our subdivision.
Yeah.
I have no idea how those things, the subdivisions were created prior to zoning. But,
It was basically a survey map.
you know,
That's it.
So the short answer is on that road, if we're talking about the one Chestnut Street that's never been developed, we have no responsibility for any maintenance of that road or any tree removal or anything of the sort. Was that the issue that had come up that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we previously, there's another piece of road over there in which the utility company came to us and asked if they could open it up in order to do their maintenance on the lines that went along that paper right of way through there. And the same question came up, whether or not we had the right or whatever to do that. Now, a lot of those deeds also have that inclusion in it of about including the right title or interest to the center line of the road in the deed. So there comes up the other question that this tree probably fell off this person's own property, and it's a.
it could be. The only way to determine that would be to search, some of these parcels and see how they would deed it out, whether they were
Right.
deeded to the center line. But the map doesn't show the parcels going to the center line of the road. But that doesn't mean they weren't deeded to the center line of the road.
Right.
They could have been.
Yeah, but we also are under that other section of, what is it, 280A or 280, about if we fail to open a road within a certain period of time, it ceases to be a road. Open and
It's not
maintain.
280A. I'm not sure that there's another provision of the highway law, but
Another
if-
provision in there, yes.
yeah, there is a section of the law that's refers to that, but
Right.
it's, to be honest, I don't think we have if the road is not maintained by us now, I don't think we even have the authority to grant Central Hudson the right to install their lines. But if they go ahead and do it, we don't care.
Yeah, well, they should have their own easement.
Yeah.
The other thing, in asking Heather, there used to be road inventories out there that which everybody maintained a road inventory which had its date of acceptance into the system. So I was wondering in the old records if there was anything like that that you're aware of.
Not that I've seen. The only thing that we have is our New York State DOT inventory of roads.
Right, yes.
Yeah, I don't see a date of inception on that. It's just conditioned basically shoulder width, width of road, and what the surface is. But no, I've never seen that. And Chestnut is definitely not on there.
I wouldn't expect that would be on that.
Right.
And the inventory, I don't think indicates the width of the road. I think only the length of the road, right?
No, the New York State DOT inventory does indicate.
Does have the width?
of
Okay.
road. Yeah, and I think it also has the shoulder, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
have one here with me. While we're on this, I did not receive a copy of that email with your memo either.
Oh, I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. It's the same memo that I sent, pretty much that I sent to you previously. So I know you got that one,
You want me
but
to
I'll
send
resend
to
it to you.
That would be good if
Yeah.
Dara, if you could, that.
Yeah,
just for
Warren,
my-
Lauren, is
Yeah.
there a way for the people who own the abutting properties to do something to have the road declared not a road and have their properties increased to the center line of the road?
Yeah, I don't want to give them legal advice,
Right,
but there is a, this has come up before. This came up a lot in Rhinebeck and Rhine Cliff. We have a lot of paper roads in Rhine Cliff. And people would come to us and want us to deed the paper road to them because they adjoined that so that it would increase. But we researched that and decided that we couldn't do that.
you
but-
didn't have any, control over the road. It wasn't yours.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have no authority, but what they could do, and again, don't hold me to it, is they can probably file what's known as an Article 15 action under the Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law, and declare that road is theirs if they've used it. I mean, if they have, people very often utilize those paper roads as part of their property and they park on it or they use it as driveways.
Well,
So
some
if
of it's
they-
been mowed, some of it.
Or mow
somebody
them,
mows
or-
Some of it, yeah.
If they've done that, they might be able to assert a cause of action so that they get title to that. but
Yeah.
it would be, complex because they would have to somehow serve the original subdivider or successors in
Yeah,
interest.
yeah.
But certainly no one would stop them from improving upon it, it sounds like.
I,
No,
That'd be
it would
the
be a
best
good
route,
we don't care.
the
It's
best
not-
route
has
for
nothing to do with
having
us.
a claim. Yeah.
And don't, I'm assuming Heather, I assume Heather doesn't assume any responsibility for maintaining roads that are not currently town roads. Because if
Correct,
you
no.
start
No.
maintaining those roads, then they can become town roads. So better to leave them alone.
Okay. Anything else on that before I move on?
Well, I just want, I'm going to have Alice send out a notice to everybody. The Tri-Town Coalition has put together an interesting program next week, a virtual program on the impact of COVID-19 on rural housing. And they have a number of people speaking, and I think it's a very nice program. And so you'll be getting that. And if you want to do it, you register, and then you can come to the forum.
All right. The next question I had on for Warren has got to do with Ray and Heather, which is the easement for Hicks Hill for the repair.
The easement for Hicks Hill.
Yep. So
I'm not
what,
sure I'm aware of that.
you're not. So what's, Heather, do you want to talk?
Oh,
Um,
With regards to the need of what for the.
Yes,
project
but
itself?
I just kind of want to do a heads up on the fact that we're going to need this easement.
Okay, I can either speak, or Ray, if you feel more comfortable, you can.
can,
By all
I'm
means,
having trouble. I'm wondering if I'm,
yeah, by all means, I could provide an overview of it. So there's an area of Hicks Hill, again, Hicks Hill being a town road. It is a user road, okay? And there is a very steep embankment on the downhill side that has run into some issues as far as slope failure. And in order to stabilize the road, the town will need to obtain an easement to make improvements on that property. So there'll need to be both a temporary easement obtained by the current property owner, as well as a permanent easement as well. So that way the town can provide maintenance of that side slope protection in the future. So our office has prepared design plans for the improvement, and we identified a preliminary area, and we can provide meets and bounds descriptions to you, Warren, so that way an easement agreement can be prepared and submitted to the property owner for signature and filing with the county. So we just want to give you the heads up that we will need to start that process prior to implementing the construction.
And Warren, apparently this is a piece of road.
yeah, for some reason my computer is coming in and out, so I didn't get everything. I got the gist of what you were saying. I'm assuming that you need to obtain a temporary and a permanent easement over a portion of joining property at Hicks Hill Road, and
Correct.
you'll get these. Yeah, that's not a problem. We can do.
And
yeah,
what
we
I'll
do
do
that
is,
all the time.
yeah, so what I'll do is I have the design plans, but I also have the meets and bounds descriptions of the easements. So I'll forward them to you so that way you can draft
I
it
don't know
up.
what's the matter with my computer.
I don't think I can help you either.
I'm sorry, I'm not getting everything. So Ray and I got the gist of it. Ray and I can talk about it. It shouldn't
Okay.
be a problem.
Okay.
Sarah, did you have something to say?
I'm sorry.
Wanted to remind everybody that this was a problem that is a recurring problem that had part of that road had collapsed a number of years ago and was fixed. And apparently the fix wasn't maybe exactly as extensive as it should have been. So we're having to address it again. And it really has to be addressed pretty promptly. And it's definitely a problem.
Yeah, that's why I kind of wanted to get going on it, on at least all the permissions so that we could jump in if we can find the money. Okay, great.
How many property owners are we talking about?
Just one.
Just one owner.
Just one. Oh, great. And are they willing to cooperate?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Does it matter that it was blown out in the remnants of that hurricane, maybe as a disaster, something from the state or the county?
No, because quite honestly, I doubt that the county, or my apologies, I doubt the town received any funding for that because it was not on their property because of the fact it was a user road. So normally, actually, FEMA would not reimburse the town for any type of an improvement unless the town previously owned the property or had an easement across that property.
Okay, then the third thing I had, Warren, was a discussion of Willow Roots. And I know that you were at the planning board meeting last night. Did you hear that, Warren?
I think you said, asked if I was at the planning, but yeah, I was at, are you talking about that property on North Main Street? Is
Yes.
that-
Yes.
Or is there another issue?
No, that's it.
Okay,
So, and Drew is here to discuss what's going on. And I just want to tell you, I have 12 letters of support for Willow Roots, which, if in case anybody doesn't know, feeds approximately, probably almost 100 people right now, once a week. Yeah, it's been extraordinary. The virus upped their, I don't know, what their clientele dramatically. And so it's resulted in an unhappy neighbor.
Have they thought at all, do you know, Dara, about moving their base of operations to somewhere more central out of that neighborhood?
I don't know. That's just I have no idea.
You know,
It would be hard. I know how the operation runs.
Yeah.
And you know, they have a cooler, they have a couple of freezers. Everything comes in, goes into the coolers all week. And then for 1 hour on Saturday, they distribute everything to people who drive up their driveway and then out. They have 2 driveways on the property. The one going in, and then around the corner of their garage, it goes out onto Carla Terrace.
This is a planning board function, not a town board function.
Well, they've asked us,
I mean,
they've-
I feel very uncomfortable with the town board taking a position on it until I hear what the planning board's decision was.
all right, well, Drew, do you want to talk about that, or Warren, because you were there? And I brought it up tonight because a few people wanted me to bring it up. So it's not just a planning board issue.
In what way is it not just the planning board issue?
Sarah, can you help me out here?
Well, the planning board simply indicated that the ZASA should come back into the planning board to have a discussion. But in the meanwhile, we have an essential operation there that is being used by a large segment of the population in the course of a pandemic where there's a great deal of need. And it would seem to me that we should figure out a resolution, at least temporarily, where we could continue this operation during this period of COVID. A lot of emergency undertakings have occurred in lots of different communities to assist the public with these incredible needs.
Are you suggesting we help find them an alternate venue for their pickup component, you mean, Sarah?
So I'm saying that there may be a way for us to designate that this is an emergency under some emergency power of the town, where we could say that for 1 hour on Saturday, there will be cars going through to Carla Terrace.
So Drew, Warren, what was the original verdict of this driveway in the back? I just want to know the whole story because they did come to you in the past, correct?
They came to the planning board, yes.
They came to the planning
Yes,
board.
yes, Drew.
And there was apparently a restriction on the use of that driveway, so I believe that it wouldn't become a pass-through driveway, is that correct?
Well, that, I believe, maybe Drew knows better, that they have a unit on their property, a rental unit, that uses Carla Terrace as its access. Is that right, Drew?
That is correct. They have that. The issue is in 2014, opened a tax business on the property. And one of the conditions of the approval of that tax business is that no customer would use the property in a through driveway sense. They would enter on North Main Street and exit on North Main Street. So that's kind of what put the fly in the ointment, that now there's, all these cars going through the property, and we have this condition on one of the businesses on the property that they're not supposed to do that. So that's kind of how the town got involved. That's how I got involved in the enforcement issue of it. And all I did, I asked Nelson if he would honor that agreement that he made with the planning board. I understand that this has probably nothing to do with the tax business, but unfortunately that condition was put on the approval. So it's kind of out there and it can't be really ignored. Especially since we have people on Carla Terrace.
Drew, what is the actual status of Willow Roots? Was that something that should have come before the planning board?
Oh, he's freezing.
Probably in hindsight, yes. I said probably in hindsight, yes.
It definitely was not part of the initial discussion of the tax business.
There are really two issues. One is the issue of whatever restriction the planning board put on the property when they approved the tax business as a home occupation, I guess it was. And then the other is, can the property be used on a temporary basis or emergency basis for food distribution during the COVID or not just the COVID situation, but for people in need. So I think the first issue is very easily resolved by the property owner going back to the planning board and requesting the planning board modify or remove that restriction. And that would be within the jurisdiction of the planning board. The other is a little bit more difficult because it's really not technically a permitted use. It's not a permitted accessory use to a residence. And what Sarah was mentioning, and I haven't finished my review of this, was that we discussed the possibility of there being somewhere in the governor's emergency orders, some powers that are vested in the town board to permit properties to be used for food distribution, at least during the COVID crisis.
Right.
And we've utilized those powers in Hyde Park, for example, to allow a drive-through for a restaurant, which would normally not be permitted by the zoning law. I don't know whether we have the power under any of there are 200 and something, I don't know, there might be up to 300 emergency orders now from the governor, and I haven't looked through all of them. So if we have that power, we could decide that just through a resolution that we're going to permit that to happen with certain guidelines and restrictions. So it doesn't become, every property has one of these food distributions. The other way to do it would be to consider amending our zoning law, which is a little bit more complex, to allow a food pantry or food distribution center to be operated as an accessory use to a residence or a church or another facility. That's a little bit more complicated. So we could deal with it that way. So.
Well, I think the big issue is Saturday is their next distribution. And we have an awful lot of people depending on them in order to eat.
I don't think Drew, you haven't issued a stop work order, have you, or anything?
I have not an
Okay.
official stop work order. I
Okay,
asked the
so,
property owner to honor the agreement he made with the planning board.
so there's nothing in place which prohibits them from continuing it, even though it may be technically a violation, until Drew issues a stop work order. And that's within his discretion. And he's perfectly entitled not to do that at this point. And that might be the wiser way of proceeding until we can sort out what the remedies are to allow this to happen with certain controls and restrictions on it.
Well, it could happen. Would there be no complaints if the distribution center was ingress and egress from Main Street only?
You have to be there to see
Would
how
we
it works, Rory. It would be very difficult for them to have people come up and then come back out.
What
So-
about the municipal lot? Have them pull in by the bank, drive around in the horseshoe, and go out right there on Main Street.
Yeah, bringing all that food
I'm
out there,
Trying to make suggestions.
no, it's just pretty impossible.
Drew?
Is there any chance, at least for the time being, we could ask one of the policemen to go down and do a little traffic control?
I have one of the policemen right here. I'm sure I could ask for that. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm hoping it might help with the neighbors'
Saturday.
concerns.
On the short term, that would be.
And,
good.
and that we're taking it under advisement.
Mhm.
I mean, in the long term, I'm not at all sure that kind of situation is desirable in a residential neighborhood. I'm not sure it's a good idea to have that as an accessory use. So it may ultimately have to be relocated, but in the meantime, I think we should continue with what they're doing because it's a very essential contribution.
Did the planning board have any thoughts or recommendations? Are we frozen?
What did you ask, Don?
I said, did the planning board make any recommendations or have?
They
any
just
thoughts?
asked that the Ziases come back in and have a discussion with them. They didn't take any action.
The planning board doesn't really have enforcement powers. It's really Drew that would have the enforcement power, and then that could be appealed to the zoning board of appeals if he issued a stop work order. What the planning board has jurisdiction over is the grant of the approval, and they can withdraw that grant if it's being violated. That would be the power that the planning board has. But there was no discussion about that at the planning board meeting. I think they're in favor of trying to figure out a resolution of this.
That was my understanding.
But you're right, Sarah. I don't think it's something that you want in residential neighborhoods
No,
on a
no.
long-term basis. They're usually, in Rhinebeck, we have one at the church. They're usually at institutions where they're located, and the cars line up and they go in and they come out.
So I think overall it's something that we all have to work on long term, but in the meantime, I really would like it not to have to stop or be really uprooted.
All right, so it sounds to me like we can get the police out there to help the neighbors feel safer. And we will encourage Willow Roots to come back to the planning board and figure
And-
that out.
Yeah, and the neighbor can be informed that both boards have it under consideration and are taking it seriously.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Great. Is there anything else for Warren? All right, then let's go on to department reports. So the first is the highway department.
Okay, I just wanted to let you all know that I've actually been notified, I think it was a couple days ago, that the trees in front of the cemetery on Carpenter Hill Road will be removed next week by Central Hudson. As I stated, I think it was last month, I'll have a crew member or two over there to help remove the wood. They are going to chip all of the brush, but we are going to remove the wood that's left. So we'll be working along with them. My crew will actually be removing more of our diseased and hazardous trees along our roadways with our contractor during the last week in September. And of course, that's weather permitting. So we're looking forward to having our contractor come in 2 days to work up on that project. We've been receiving deliveries of our road sand for the season and have been very busy mixing to fill the salt shed. I think we took our last delivery this morning. So we're just looking to get some more salt into stockpile for that. And then our material situation will be ready for the winter. The weather has been cooperating with us, and we are also still trying to finish up the last of our road improvement projects as winter approaches. Just an update on the equipment again. It seems like I'm forever updating on the equipment. One of these days we will get it. We dropped off the truck that we're having the body replacement done on August 28th. It is moving along quite well, and it should be back to us in October, and that should be ready to go as well. The new 250 with the utility body that we have on order is scheduled for delivery also before the end of October. So hopefully everything will be in-house and put into service before the winter comes. The other thing that I have, I guess I could talk about the loader bill that Sarah was questioning about. That piece of equipment, it did have a coolant leak underneath the seat in the cab of the loader. That was something that obviously we could not do ourselves. So we had to get the HO Pen cat dealer to come up. It did take 20 hours to perform this repair over 3 days by the time they took it apart, diagnosed what was wrong, and then put it back together. With the amount of labor that it took to get that apart and the condition of the one particular radiator part, I decided to replace them both the air conditioning cooling section as well as the heater section. And that was just so that we didn't put it all back together, not replacing the other one, which was showing signs of deterioration as well, and then have to then go in and take it all apart again. So at the cost of $231 an hour for a labor rate at 20 hours, that's where the majority of that went for the labor. The parts were not far behind. But again, this piece of equipment is 18 years old, is in very corrosive conditions, although we do the best we can to keep our equipment maintained. It is, the drivers are getting in and out with the salt on their boots. It's melting, and what happened is it got underneath the seat of the cab, and it caused this coolant leak originally. So yes, that was a big repair. Definitely. And that is a piece of equipment that is on my equipment replacement list. However, with what we just spent on this one, I hesitate in trading it in at this point, but that's for when we start talking about budget stuff, I can get into that a little bit more. The only other thing that I have in terms of a question, I guess, is with regards to Hicks Hill. Once we do obtain the easements, are we going to be going through and actually soliciting for bids shortly thereafter so that we can get this project underway if the funding does become available or we're able to find it in the budget?
Well, isn't this the one that we wanted to kind of prioritize?
Yes, it is.
Ray, how crucial is it, Ray?
It's pretty crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely needs to be done. It's actually, I had conducted an inspection, I believe it was in the March timeframe, if I remember correctly, originally, and had photo documentation and so forth. And since such time, there was a small retaining wall that is now collapsed. So it is continuing to move. So
So I would say get it so you're ready to roll if funding becomes available.
Right.
Well,
Yeah, that was my thought.
Okay, so then do we have to vote for Ray to go out to put together the bid documentation? Is that something that needs to be done now, or does that get done next month, or what is the process with that?
Well, I would say that we have to obtain the easement, right?
Mhm.
So based on obtaining the easement, we could then put it out to bid. Warren, is that something we have to vote on or
To obtain the easement?
to obtain the easement and then go ahead and put out the?
Yeah,
um,
when you put it, yes, both of those would require a resolution.
Okay, so,
But Ray could start on the documentation now. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't need,
right, Ray, how long typically is a bid good for?
The contractors are required to hold their bid for 45 days
40.
after the bid opening.
Okay. No, I would be willing to make the motion to have Ray go ahead and put the contract documents together.
I'll
so we
second
have
that.
them on the shelf.
second is Matt Zick. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We'll get them completed and get them ready. And in the meantime, I'll work with Warren on obtaining the easement.
Great.
Also, Ray, if you can help us try to find some money. I mean, if you're aware of any DEC or other organizations that are interested in slope stabilization.
Okay. I'll actually, I have a call tomorrow with others in the office regarding funding, so I'll bring this up as one of the topics to see if even through USDA to see whether USDA has any funding available as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have unless anyone has anything else for me.
Oh, I only had one question. What's the status of the signs for the parking lot?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm glad you brought that up. They actually were delivered last week.
Yay.
So I just have to go through and mark out and do the call before you dig so that we're sure that there are no utilities in there. So I would say with, let's see, if I mark them out tomorrow, they need 3 business days to clear. Within a couple of weeks, we should have those mounted.
Great. Okay,
Thank you for reminding me. I forgot that one.
thank you. And then Ray, what's the status of the highway garage repair?
So the interior work architecturally, as far as those repairs and the drains, we're just about done with those. And we actually have completed the exterior work as well. So that's the oil water separator and then the storm drainage. So once the interior drain system's done, which I should have it done in about a week, then that project would be ready to go out to bid as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Drew, do you have any?
Just my normal report and the comment that the building inspector office has been pretty busy this summer, surprisingly, very surprisingly to me. I had 7 permits in August, bringing the total to the year to 48. 1 new home so far year to date. 3 certificate of occupancies were issued. 5 certificate of occupancy searches were done. 21 inspections were performed during the month. The 48 total permits year to date is the highest I've had in the last 10 years. So
Wow.
yeah, it's quite busy. It's surprising, but it's very busy.
Well, no, there's just a ton of real estate activity of people moving up here and deciding to do things. And that's why this symposium, the forum is very interesting because we're interested in affordable housing, and the affordable housing is getting snapped up right and left by people coming from Brooklyn and the Bronx and everywhere else. So it's an interesting problem and also possibly a positive as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
We have the police department report, which I will read. Let's see. They spent 20 hours in court because court's back up, 165 and a half hours on patrol, 10 hours on administration. Investigations were 14 hours. And it looks like they were on a detail for 9 hours and worked on the vehicles for 7. There were 25 complaints, 6 calls for fire EMS, 2 for accidents, 58 traffic warnings, 36 tickets, and 2 parking warnings. And John says that mainly they've been doing court security this month. Officer in charge Hughes assisted paving company with parked cars and traffic. Oh, that was, of course, the fact that 199's been completely repaved throughout the hamlet, or through the hamlet, out on either side. And during the storm, officer assisted in the clearing of numerous trees that were down blocking roadways. Water.
So the water usage has been down. If you remember, during the summer months, due to the drought, people utilizing it for watering purposes and so forth. But we also had a pair of leaks. The water usage was up over 65,000 gallons per day. This past month, it's now dropped down to a more normal usage of about 53,000. So roughly fixing the 2 water leaks on the service lines has brought that down by about 12,000 gallons per day. And it remains pretty steady at that point. Other than that, just handling some maintenance. Both of the chlorinator pumps were rebuilt, which we try to do at least twice a year. And then we rebuilt 2 water meters, and similar to the building department, we had, it's been busy as far as markouts. We actually had 6 utility markouts over the past month as well. And again, that's to locate water services prior to any excavation that's taking place to make sure contractors would not hit those utilities. From a water sampling, we've been doing the annual water sampling. So that included 2 water samples for disinfection byproducts, and then TED lead and copper samples as well. And in both cases, they came in below the federal and state regulations, so we're within the guidance values there. Just a reminder, disinfection byproducts. So like many water systems, we use chlorine. And one of the things that happens with respect to the use of chlorine, it reacts with organic compounds in the water, which can cause carcinogenic compounds. And so the state does require that we take those samples. Again, since we have a groundwater source, it's less likely, and we have never had any hits. We've always been below this threshold. So that's all good news. One additional note regarding water sampling, just last month and towards the end of August, the state has now made it a requirement that all public water supplies test for polyfluorinated compounds. That is PFOAs and similar compounds. So we are required to do 2 consecutive quarters of testing, one test per quarter. That needs to be completed, or my apologies, that needs to be started by February 2021. What I anticipate doing is collecting 1 sample next month, and then we'll do an additional sample the first quarter of 2021, and take it from there as far as any guidance from the Department of Health. Okay.
Great.
Other than that, we'll just, meter readings will take place at the end of this month, and bills will go out beginning of October.
Thank you. Can you stick around to talk about the asbestos for 8 and North?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that'll be soon.
Sure.
Recreation Department, Michael?
All right. So for recreation right now, we just have baseball and softball going on, and that will go into October, probably by the 2nd week that will be wrapped up. Kind of glad we were able to have that happen. Gives the kids a little sense of normalcy, and it's one of the few sports where you can be socially distant. I've been working on the recreation plans for the future, and all the different ideas and stuff I will have consolidated and sent to y'all by the end of the month.
Great. Jen, are you still on?
Jen got disconnected, but I have her on speaker. I just want to see if it works. Okay, try, Jen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, if whatever you just did, Madeline, worked better.
Okay. Okay, so
I'm sorry about this craziness. I just wanted to share real quickly what's happening down at the lake. We have been working, Sarah and Matt and I met with Ken from USDA Wildlife. It was super interesting, very knowledgeable. So we're going to continue our work with them and see what they have to offer. We're expecting an email from him. And we've also been in touch with the Lake Association, and they are completely in support of helping our lake because it's in such rough shape. I just want to throw out one really interesting fact that Ken shared about the geese. He said that New York State is able, our environment is able to handle somewhere around, don't quote me on the exact numbers, but somewhere around 85,000 of these geese. And we are pushing up to 280,000, something around there. So you can see that the population is way beyond what our environment can handle. So looking at different options, it's just,
Oh, we're losing her.
Oh, Jenny.
And to kind of go off the duck issue too, I mean goose issue, is I've encouraged many of my friends to get their federal duck stamps because you can actually hunt geese during the year. So those that have farms and nearby stuff where the geese sometimes travel to, I've told them about that. But then on the wildlife management thing, I was talking to a couple people and they talked about how when the geese molt, they can be transplanted. And I believe that's what they were all working on in terms of with the Wildlife Service, is just transplanting them
Right.
while they can't fly away.
Matt, have you got any more information on that?
They try to do it during the molting process.
Okay,
But-
that's great. Okay. Michael, is there anything else?
Nope, that's pretty much it. Unless anybody has any questions about stuff. That's what we got going on.
Great. All right. Thank you so much.
Yep.
I don't, let's see, we do have an animal control report. Actually, I think that Rich told me that there was, he got 3 calls this month. Oh, 27 hours of training and meeting, investigated 3 complaints, and gave a notice to comply or a citation to 3 people, and earned his CPR basic life support. I know that he had 3 dangerous dog complaints this month, which is pretty unusual around here, actually. So something to really pay attention to, especially with little kids out riding bicycles and everybody's out walking around the lake. So you can't just let your dog out. You know, sometimes they overreact to wheels and little kids and stuff. So, but I was surprised to hear that. All right, so old business. The first thing on the old business that I have was, well, there's 2 issues. The condition of the garages and the asbestos bids. So Ray, let's talk about that first, and then we can get that.
Sure. So the town received 4 written quotations for pre-demolition asbestos surveys to be conducted on 8 and 12 Main Street. 2 of the bids that were received were simple lump sum bids, and they really didn't provide any type of breakdown associated with the number of samples, what the cost per sample were going to be. Unfortunately, one of those was the low bid at $5,600, but again, it did not have any type of breakdown, and it did not identify how many samples were anticipated. two other quotes provided breakdowns. One was from Quest Environmental, and the second was from Air Environmental Consultants. And I'm familiar with both of those companies. Our office has actually worked with both of those firms in the past. They're both qualified, and we've been happy with their work that they've done in the past on municipal projects. Based on my review of their two bids, my recommendation is to go with Quest Environmental. Their estimate is in the amount of $6,415. And one of the reasons for going with Quest is they were slightly less than Air Environmental, but when you took a look at the actual cost per sample, they were approximately $10 less per sample. And again, they had estimated close to 85 samples to be taken between the two buildings. So again, more economical as far as that goes. So again, based on the three that were received, my recommendation is to move forward with Quest Environmental in the amount of $6,415. One caveat to that is just please keep in mind, those are estimates based on the number of samples. And Quest Environmental has estimated approximately 85 samples. However, if they will take less samples, then obviously that will be slightly less. If they take more than 85 samples, then it'll be slightly higher.
Okay.
So that is an estimate based on the number of samples taken.
That's great. I'd be willing to make the motion that we take Ray's recommendation to ask Quest to be our sampling agency.
Can I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, great.
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Right.
And just so everyone knows, so normally what will take place is I can contact Quest then on behalf of the town and let them know, and I'll also get a hold of the other vendors as well, just letting them know what the turnout was. So we'll coordinate that with Quest, and we'll work with the supervisor as far as getting access into the buildings, allowing that to take place. And normally what does take place is, and we'll get a second proposal from Quest, is once the samples come in, once we determine with Quest's assistance the extent of the asbestos containing materials, the town may go towards either a remediation type project where the asbestos materials are removed, okay, and then after that is done, then the buildings are demoed, or to go to the state for a variance that would allow the asbestos containing materials to remain intact and for an action plan to be placed that would minimize the potential transportation of those asbestos containing materials in the air during a demolition process. But just so you know, we would still try to keep Quest involved in that process. All right. So again, as that develops, by all means, we'll let the board know. All right.
Great.
Because obviously we'll need this information before we let out the bid for the demolition process to take place.
Thank you. The second part of this was the garages there. We had kind of discussed trying to save one of the garages. And I went over there. I don't know if anybody else has walked over there to look at them, but the smaller garage in back of Ruth Ann's house, the yellow one, does need a new roof. They are not going to be, they're not good for storing our 1897 LaFrance fire truck because none of them have any heat or temperature control. The barn in back of 12 North Main is kind of a great building, but it is a mess. It doesn't have a roof over most of it. And the roof at 8 North Main is also a mess.
Does anybody look behind the tarps at 12 North Main to see what's the rest of the garage is? What's back there?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Is Warren still on?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you know what's behind the tarps in that garage? I mean, it's
Not a clue.
not a clue. Okay, because I mean, you can look through the door and that's all you see is tarps in there. Blocking
This is
off somebody
inside or behind the barn?
Inside.
inside.
You know, there could be old tiles there.
Well,
At one time, Ivo Regini owned that, and he had a lot of tiles stored.
Mhm.
I don't know.
okay. Just, I was just looking around trying to decide, what might be back there.
It's a neat building.
It's really too bad, yeah.
Yeah,
The roof on that one is non-existent, but
correct. Yeah. So that's that. Any other thoughts on this?
We'll be taking those structures down too and sampling from them for asbestos as well, you know?
That's correct. Yes, they are part of the protocol as far as testing. And yes, it is anticipated, at least originally it was anticipated that we probably would be taking those down. But yeah, they are part of the protocol.
Okay, we already dealt with number 2 on old business. Number 3 is really just an update on forming the stakeholders committee for the police reform work that we're going to be doing. And I have 2 members so far, and we spoke about this at the workshop meeting. But I actually think this could be a very exciting thing to do, which is basically just to, they're calling it a stakeholders committee. And so we're looking for a diverse committee of people willing to look at our policies, a few choice policies, not every single policy, but there's a use of force policy, and there's a few more on the list. So that's underway, and I continue to look for and ask people to be on that committee. And then I added one more thing to old business, which was the fencing at the Graham Brush House. At the workshop meeting this week, we were talking about just fixing the front. There's one fence post that's gotten hit by a plow, and it just needs to get reset. But then you go around the corner and there's a section of fence posts and rails that are really rotten. And we were talking about just taking that section down, and like it kind of sits out there. It looks a little odd. When the Historical Society heard this, they felt that they wanted that section of fence replaced. So it's a little bit of fence. It's 3 or 4 posts and the commensurate rails.
Is this something Bob would do?
Yeah, Bob can do it.
Because the material cost for
Nothing.
is nothing. And if we
Right.
could-
My problem was that it gets hit, the plow hits it all the time. The reason it's in bad shape is they dump the snow onto that part of the parking, when they do the parking lot, they dump the snow there. So the snow is always going, and it has to go there. There's sort of no question about where it goes. So should we build a piece of fence there that's going to probably have snow dumped on it every year when there is snow? That's my question.
Now that we own the property right next to it, they can push the other way too, and push the snow onto that other property to not push it right up against the fence.
Well, we'd have to take that fencing down too anyway, but I suppose we could, I'm not sure it's that easy because they come through straight from, off North Main.
Why don't we ask the person who plows it since she's still on?
I think she's gone.
Okay.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about this?
If you want me to get my video back too, hold on.
There you-
So I was kind of in and out and I heard part of the conversation. So the section of fence that you're talking about is where, when we come straight in off of North Main Street and we push, which is sort of to the left a little bit there, where we basically stockpile it until we're able to come and take it away, which is usually a few days after.
Right.
So the issue is the condition of the fence at that location.
The fence really has to be taken down. It's kaput.
Okay.
So the question really is replacing it with new
Mhm.
fence.
Mhm.
Can someone walk me through before we get there about, is the reason we're responsible for this fence because the town dumps snow on it and that's why we're
Yeah.
talking about it at all?
We're talking about it because traditionally the town has maintained the fences. That the Graham Brush House belongs to the Historical Society. However, forever, the town has kept the fencing up and mowed the lawn there.
That's very generous of us. I'm sure they appreciate those gestures. Does the whole board feel as if that is a tradition we're looking to continue and honor? It's new to me to understand.
It's not, but Bobby Lee can do it. It's,
Yeah.
if it's 3 posts, they're like $10 a post and $11 a rep.
I think we might as well do it.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, I can tell you that when we push snow there, we take care to not push against the fence, and we do come back and remove the pile, usually in between storms when we do get significant storms. So I think I'm not sure that it's all plow damage or snow damage there. I think it's just old. It definitely-
Yeah, I think you're right, Heather.
That sounds great. That sounds great. So we'll have Bobby Lee replace it.
That's fine. Do we need to vote on that?
Yeah, let's put it up to a vote.
You have Bobby Lee replace the fence.
As a fossil member, I'll have to recuse myself from the vote here, but I'm sure it'll go their way.
It's the Historical Society, not Fossil.
Or
Yeah, it's not
Historical
fossil.
Society. I'm sorry, I meant to say Historical Society.
Oh, you're okay.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. We'll fix that. On to new business. We have 2 nominations for the library board. I sent you their applications, so to speak. It's Darren Culver and Patrick McMurray. And unless there's any discussion, I think they sound really great and am appreciative of their willingness to be on the board.
I move that we accept both of them as members of the library board.
I'll second.
All in favor?
As
Aye.
a point of discussion, did the board recommend these two?
Yes, they did.
Yes.
They sent them to us.
Okay. I'll second it then.
I think Matt seconded it, but all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let Don second it if you want to, Madeline.
Not necessary.
All right, great. Warren, do we need to, is there anything for us to talk about with the Pocomtuck property?
I don't think so. It was on the agenda last night and it was approved.
Okay, great. Michael thought there might be something the town board needed to do about it, but
No, everything
Right.
went fine.
okay, thank you. All right. I don't have anything else. Does anybody else? Warren, is there anything for executive session?
Not that I have.
I had a question, Dara, maybe it's not apropos or nothing, but I was just curious about how sales tax receipts were continuing to progress as the year has worn on since we last talked about it, maybe.
We are right on target to reach our revenue estimate this year. So I'm a little shocked by it we were warned, originally, we were warned that we would see a 40% reduction. Then they amended that to about 10 or 11%. But Pine Plains has received all of the sales tax that we got last year so far. So that's the second quarter, the first quarter, the second quarter. And the third quarter is due in October.
So we haven't even gotten, so the first 2 quarters surpassed the entirety of 2019. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna be fine on it.
That's great.
And the question really will be, if the economy weakens in the next couple of years due to the virus, will that affect sales tax? But people have been ordering online, and we do get a portion of sales tax from that. I don't know if you've seen the recycling center, but it's full of boxes from Amazon. And we had to up the pickups because we got so many. So that's if you want to know what's happening in the world, go to the recycling center and you will be able to find out. Anything else? All right, then I'd like to move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Thank you, Madeline and Warren.
Good
Thank you.
night. Keep well.
Yeah, you
Warren?
too.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.